I want this. Okay, so we'll see how this works out. Um, I'm trying to remember what the date is. Uh, it's July 20 something. And yeah, I'm in Ireland, so a little bit different uh, setting. And I'm on my iPad, which I'm not familiar with uh, dealing with on Zoom. So forgive any glitches. Um, but we will nonetheless follow the standard schedule, which is actually for me very nice to have, very grounding to be able to, do something semi-normal. I have been traveling since last um, Thursday. I flew to wherever I flew, New Jersey, yes. And actually, I had quite an interesting time in New Jersey. Um, I went to an AA meeting, which I have not done in a little while, and went to a monastery uh, where they had the Empty Cloud Monastery, uh, which the front of their website says a gender inclusive monastery. So unlike many of the traditional, particularly Theravadan monasteries, this monastery gives the women equal status. Can you imagine? And so they had quite a event. It was um, a meta convention they called it, and Bhikkhu Bodhi was there. That was one of the main draws for me. You've probably heard me talk about him. He's the great translator of the Pali Canon, and so I got to have a word with him, and he was quite charming and seemed to be happy to see me. So that was enough of a thrill for me. And then on Sunday, I gave a talk at a Buddhist recovery group. So that kind of uh, a series of things sort of makes for a interesting weekend. And then, as I say, flew off Sunday night. But that seems to be enough of a oh, prelude now that people have stopped arriving. Um, and so let's sit. And I do not have a bell. So at the end of about 20 minutes, I will maybe say ding or something like that. And won't have quite the resonance of an actual bell, but there you are. Oh, and Charmaine asked in the chat how my workshop was, so I'll talk about these things and try to integrate it all into something that uh, amounts to something of a talk. So we'll see. All right, just settling back. Yeah, everybody can hear me okay? Because again, I'm not, yeah, don't have my usual, okay, don't have my usual microphone. It's just whatever, there's a microphone somewhere on this device. And I've got my little earbuds in, so, okay. Well, hopefully I won't fall asleep. I am a bit jet lagged, but, nothing serious. If I fall asleep, somebody might have to unmute themselves and say ding if it goes past like, too long. Maybe 30 minutes. You'll see me. I'll be like this. So then you'll know, okay, he's out.
I'll yell at you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. That's what friends are for. Very good. All right, settling back into your body. And I say that, I mean bringing your attention into your body, feeling yourself sitting, just starting by generally feeling your body coming into stillness. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. And feeling the body breathing. And taking note of how you feel right now. Are you bright and alert or a little sleepy or dull? What's your mood? What kind of energy do you have today, internally, emotionally? And the starting point of our practice is to be with, to accept, not to try to fix or control. And actually, this is not just the starting point of practice, it's in some ways the essence of practice. The idea that struggling with how we are, trying to control how we are, is more disruptive and ultimately creates more dukkha, more suffering than just allowing and almost embracing whatever is there, even if it's unpleasant. Surrender is a deep and spiritual practice that, when applied in a meditative way, can have remarkable effects right in the moment. When we breathe, we bring awareness to breath, and we allow. And there's a quality of curiosity, of investigation. Not as though we're investigating something static, like looking at a diamond or some solid object. We're investigating the movements of mind and body, the feeling world, mental world. It's all moving, always in change, in flow. Well, if a pleasant feeling comes up, how are you to engage that? Do you view it as something, some kind of reward or proof that you're meditating well? And in the same way, if an unpleasant feeling or thought or emotion comes up, you take this as an indication of failure or some shortcoming. Our practice suggests that we do neither, that we simply let it in, whatever the feeling or the thought, emotion, sensation. Remarkably, what can sound like a passive experience actually can have a transformative impact on whatever state we're in. So engagement, mindfulness, being present is not actually passive. It requires us to be alert, to be engaged, to see the pushes and pulls of mind and body, and not to get swept away. Another way of thinking of acceptance is as kindness, being kind to whatever is arising. When we react either with judgment or grasping, that's not kind. It's not gentle, creating either a conflict or a tension, a grasping tension. Acceptance and kindness of the heart, sense of receiving our experience, whatever it is, of receiving it with gratitude. This is life appearing here and now. Ding dong. Whoa, 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 whoa. Had to get the vibration in there from the bell. All right. Well, as always, nice to be with you guys. Um, a lot of familiar names and a few that I might not necessarily know. Just about almost everybody here looks like a name I know. So yeah, so interesting. I'll start as I often do, kind of talking about my personal experience and try to take that into a Dharma theme. And kind of, I guess, one of I guess my two themes are one is what I was kind of talking about during the meditation, which is resistance versus acceptance, kind of. And along with that is like it's still possible to change as you get older, and even when you are old. And and I'm someone who insists on saying that I am old because I don't know what else to describe my the age I am. Anyway, I don't care. But and you, of course, can call yourself whatever you like. Um, but so I'm traveling, and I have for a long time had a lot of aversion and anxiety around traveling, and I didn't realize it was anxiety for a long time, you know. But like the first time that my then girlfriend and now wife and I set off to take a flight together, we were going to fly to the East Coast. I woke up that morning and looked over and said, I don't think I want to go. You know, and it was like, what? Who is this guy? Right? What a jerk. I did go, but um, it's just interesting for me to like realize, like, to really look back and go, yeah, I've just had this thing, and I've joked about how I'll start packing my suitcase in my mind 2 weeks before a trip, which is, what the mind does to control things, right? Okay, as if like even if I actually pack the suitcase, I still don't have any control. But partly, my wife and daughter have kind of helped me along as they do. Like, no, we're going kind of thing. And and now that my wife is retired, she wants to travel more. And so, I just started seeing my resistance and realizing that it just wasn't necessary. And that when I stopped, when I just, and what is it that we do? Like we talk about letting go. I guess I just notice that feeling. I mean, I guess this is what we do. And sometimes I think understanding what meditation is and the practices that come out of it is kind of tricky. Like, what do we do? So it's kind of like, I mean, I guess maybe it's obvious. So I realize that's what I'm doing, and then I say to myself, "Don't do that," or you don't have to do that. And last week, as I was imagining all this travel, because I'm like, traveling with golf clubs and everything, like seems so complicated. I'm gonna fly one place and fly. I thought, you know, all these systems like the planes and the taxis and the hotels, they all want to help you to travel. They're not trying to make it harder for you. Because in my mind, it's always like, okay, I have to win. I have to beat the airline. I have to. I've thought about that when I'm in New York. I remember one time thinking, okay, I'm gonna win today against New York. Like, I'm gonna take the right subway and take the. But so that was like a really helpful like counter thought, right? Like, oh, these things are trying to make it easier for you. And but in any case, I just really like have taken this attitude of like, yeah, it's yeah, I mean, and then of course we have this teaching impermanence. Like you're on a plane for a long time, but it's not really that long. It's like then it's over, you know. Anyway, so much of it, as I say, is like seeing that it's resistance. And so I'll tell you a little bit about my weekend and then bring you then I'll pick up the sort of Dharma theme here. That, I flew to New Jersey on Thursday and Friday. I went to an AA meeting, a beginners meeting, which I hadn't done for a long time. My host, kind of, the person who picked me up at the airport, like took me to this meeting, and it was really, just interesting for me to be like in a New Jersey AA meeting listening to newcomers. And I don't know how much I can say about that, except part of me feels completely at home there, and part of me feels like something is missing. So I guess I can't say I feel completely at home, but this really takes me back to why I do this. When I go to an AA meeting, I have the same feeling I had 40 years ago when I got to AA. Like there's some things these people don't know that I could share with them, you know. And so on Saturday, I went to this monastery, the Empty Cloud Monastery, also in New Jersey. And they had this metta convention, and they had monastics from like almost every tradition. There was a Tibetan, there was Zen. It's a Theravadan monastery, kind of the Thai forest tradition. But there were, Mahayana, Vajrayana, Theravada, and they're all sharing in there. And there's certain like things like nobody's like arguing or anything, but somebody will get up and say one thing, and then somebody will say something that's like, well, they don't really agree with each other, without sort of making a point of it. But it was a little odd. And a friend of mine who's involved in that monastery had told them to invite me to give some teaching. And they were, so in the morning they said, would you moderate this panel on the Walk for Peace? So there were two monastics who I think had been involved in the Walk for Peace. And I was like, okay. I mean, I had no idea. So I just got up and kind of did that. In the afternoon, I was meant to lead a breakout group on recovery, but the volunteer who was in charge of taking me to the place, because it was like a big space and a lot of different breakout groups, the volunteer took me to the wrong place and there was nobody there. So I thought nobody had come to my breakout group. So then about 20 minutes later, somebody came up and said, they were waiting for you over there. And I was like, whoa, wait, what? Which is my personal nightmare, as somebody who's committed to showing up, and to think that some people thought that I didn't show up. But one of them showed up or came and found me. So, but, uh, but it was again one of those things like I could freak out about this. In fact, the person who picked me up that day showed up almost an hour later than I thought they were coming. And I was like, I could freak out about this, but I don't think I will. So I really feel like I'm growing up. So maybe. In any case, so on Sunday, I was gave a talk at a Buddhist recovery group that I've been involved with over the years. It's called Noble Steps. If you're ever in New Jersey, it's in Maplewood. I think they meet on Wednesdays as well as Sundays. And and that was like, okay. I've had some recovery. I've had some Buddhism. Now I'm with my people, like um, because as much as I feel like the 12 step world is missing the meditation and the Eightfold Path, sometimes I feel like the Buddhist world it just gets a little too lofty. Like it's all, you know, all fine, all sounds great, but even though the First Noble Truth is suffering, it seems like they're much more into the end of suffering, which is great too. Just if you neglect for me, first seeing the suffering clearly is where I have to start. Otherwise, it's the spiritual bypass. So what I was talking about on Sunday was the five hindrances. There's someone else who just arrived, which, is a sort of evergreen topic in Buddhism, if you will. And talking about a particular sutta, and I don't know if I'm pretty sure I've gone through this topic with you guys before. The bowl of water that the Buddha describes. A desire is like a bowl of water that you look in, and there's beautiful colored dyes. And then aversion is like a bowl of water that's boiling. And sloth and torpor, the sleepiness is like a bowl of water with algae on it. And then restlessness is like the wind is blowing it, and doubt is like muddy. And there's a great collection of similes from the Buddha, and very evocative, and really captures the feeling of these hindrances. And so if you're not familiar with the hindrances, and it's something, if you have a Buddhist book, there's probably a chapter about it. I'll just say that it's so commonly covered. And so go and look it up. And it's such a great reference point when you're meditating, like just to notice, oh, wait, I'm out there, as I was talking, oh, there's resistance, there's aversion, or there's craving, or there's dullness. And to just notice that is like really the starting point of practice to a great extent. But the thing that stood out for me, I was reading this sutta to myself. I was kind of trying to write on it last week. And the thing that kind of jumped out at me, and it's a sutta I've read many times, but this often happens, as with spiritual writings, you see new things. The thing that stood out is that the Buddha said that these bowls of water, he says, if you looked in it, you wouldn't be able to see yourself, that you would see these things, right? The dye or the boiling or the algae. And so I realized that what he's saying is that the hindrances get in the way of us seeing ourselves. It struck me as it's not like, I mean, first of all, this is ancient India, and did they have mirrors? We know the Greek mythology of Narcissus gazing into the water, right? It just see themselves. I can't remember if Narcissus is male or female, or maybe both, gender inclusive. Um, and so I thought, oh, so because I often think, typically it's said that the hindrances hinder concentration, and I've often said that. But they don't hinder mindfulness. They don't hinder you from being aware. They make it harder to be aware, but you can. So I guess you could say they hinder that, but it's not that you can't bring mindfulness to them. In fact, that's the first thing you want to do with the hindrances, is to bring attention to them and see them. Well, usually hopefully there's only one. Not uncommon to have multiple hindrances. But just going back, like, so if it's really like he's saying, the practice is to look at yourself, right? Which I think is a great way to think of it. Like, what what am I doing? I'm looking into myself, and in the meditative way that we can look into ourselves, this is one of the things that I think does get missed in traditional recovery programs. It's not that there isn't some self-reflection. Obviously, there is any kind of inventory, but it's not just that we say, oh, I tend to be like this or I do that, but that we become attuned to ourselves, to our own felt experience, the term that I have kind of landed on. Not just that I'm seeing that I'm having this thought, but I'm seeing the whole feeling world around it, the energetic experience of it, and how that gets tied up with emotional states and then mental states. And so that lack of clarity, so the hindrances tend to keep us from seeing that clearly. Now, but again, I think I have somewhat of a, I'm not sure this is a typical way of practicing, but my way of practicing is to turn to the hindrance, whatever is difficult right now, and actually try to like almost invite it in. So I was using the word acceptance during the meditation, and it's even more than that. So that when the Buddha talks about, we see it in the Anapanasati, the mindfulness of breathing sutta, where he talks about um, bringing awareness to the pleasant experience that arises. And in other sutras, he talks about becoming absorbed in that. And he uses actually liquid similes for this, or liquid language, I'll say. He talks about the steeping, being steeped, like you steep a tea bag, being steeped in these pleasant feelings and letting these pleasant feelings. And you can do this with loving kindness, right? Being steeped in it, saturated. And so it's a helpful imagery to actually cultivate this quality of really being fully absorbed in this state. But what's different in my practice from that is that I will also let myself be steeped with the unpleasant. And, I used to work with a teacher who, uh, taught these absorptions. And his way of teaching it was you should get absorbed into some pleasant experience. And he would say, if you're sitting and there's some tingling in your hands or the heart center feels soft and open, just let your mind get completely into that and let that kind of expand through your whole body. But on a certain retreat, I was, it was earlier in the retreat and I was having some difficult feelings. And I just turned toward, and I turn toward them and I let those feelings completely take me over. And they just then changed. It stopped being unpleasant. And this is, I think, just such a critical thing. What makes an emotion a mental or felt experience unpleasant? Mostly what makes it problematic is our resistance to it. It can be unpleasant, but the unpleasantness isn't usually that bad. It's not like it doesn't hurt as much as when you stub your toe. It's not like ow, 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 ow. It's more like you're just kind of a little yucky. But I find that if I just say, "Oh, I'm just gonna like let that in and breathe with that," and let it completely take me over, that it turns into like a calming kind of pleasant state. And so it tells me that it isn't the experience itself, the underlying experience, it's the resistance to it. It's that, oh, I don't like this. Oh, I don't want to fly on the plane. I don't want to, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go to school, all the things that I did all my life. I don't want to have a job. And then, you go, no, it's really okay. And so that kind of goes back to what I was talking about, my own sense of change around travel, that I just have had this attitude of like, no, it's fine. I mean, this, my host, one of my hosts here in Ireland, who is just a friend of a friend, who said he would pick me up at the airport. And I'd been telling people, oh, this guy's picking me up at the airport. I never sent him my flight information. I got off the plane. I was like dragging my stuff. I get to get my luggage. Oh, where's Tony? And then I was like, wait, did I ever? So I get out my phone, go back to my email exchange with him. No, I did not send him the flight information. And, what could I have done? Several options at this point. I'm such a fucking idiot. What's wrong with me? God, this is such a drag. Now I have to get to the hotel. All that's, I was like, you know what? There's people at this airport who want to take me to my hotel and they will be happy to. That's what their job is. And I was like, where are that? Rolled over, got in a taxi, came to the hotel. It was like, it was not a problem, right? But I could have made it into a thing, right? That was like a story about myself and like or why didn't that guy ask me for what I mean, whatever, right? Blame me, blame them. As I say, I feel like I'm growing up a little bit from time to time, moments. But it is this whole general thing of like how much I'm an aversive person. I mean, I talk about this, that they're the three Buddhist personality types. The agreed type, the ones who are always looking for something new and think that everything is great. Like these are the people on the golf course when you hit your ball way offline, they're like, "Oh, it'll be fine. That was great." You're good. I'm like, "No, it was a terrible shot. Don't say that." And then there's the aversive type, me. We're like, yeah, it looks like it's on the fairway, but it could be in a divot. That might not be. I don't know if that's really good. I don't know why I have to use golf as the metaphor for it. And then the third one, anyway, there's the types of the greed type who tend to be more positive and but looking for new experiences. The aversive types are like, I like it the way I like it, and let's not change. Like I've been to this restaurant before and I know what I like. That's what I'm getting. No, I don't have to try anything else. And then the deluded type who kind of don't know what's going on, but the deluded types tend to be pretty happy because nothing really bothers them. Everything is fine. Anyway, I'm an aversive type, which and of course, anytime you know try to break down all the human beings in the world into three categories, you're not being 100% accurate. But it's interesting to just that's the type of thing that it can be helpful to realize, oh, I have this tendency, I'm doing that thing that I tend to do. And I don't know if any of you have things that you tend to do that you, and that when, as you start to see more clearly in the bowl of water, you're like, oh, I'm doing that thing that I tend to do. Right. And what the ways that we create suffering for ourselves. And I mean, it's sort of the simplest thing. It's, this practice is kind of about I mean, a significant part of it is seeing the things that you tend to do. And then if they are things that don't really work or are problematic, stopping yourself from doing them and doing something else. It's what they call it, a contrary action or something like that in AA, right? Take the contrary action. And, I mean, I feel like I'm, again, it's like a child sometimes, like, geez. Uh, so, it's, I guess, it's amazing to me that it's possible to keep growing. And I've said before when I was young, when I was hearing of somebody who was like 60 who was in therapy, I would think, why are they bothering to be in therapy when they're already old? There's nothing. They should just give up by now. Now, as I'm considerably past 60, and I'm not in therapy, but I certainly could be. But this idea that, oh, there are still things, still ways that I can solve myself. And you would think that we would like know ourselves by now, right? I mean, I understand how young people don't understand themselves, but how can somebody so old still be figuring themselves out? I don't know. But I'm having fun at it, I will say that. And I appreciate you guys listening. I hope that something I said was of some use or some value. And I think we have a few minutes. We do have some time left if anybody wants to chime in with any golf tips or, I'm sorry, with any comments or, Mickey, can you find the mute button?
Am I on?
Yes, you're on now.
Cool. So I was, thank you for that. And um, I'm always questioning the value of applying all the work. I would prefer it just entered my head without having to do anything.
Right.
But it occurred, and I don't know that this is true, but it seems like the distinction between Buddhism and recovery,
Mm,
essential for me, is that Buddhism is this exploration of self.
mm,
And recovery is kind of getting yourself fixed so you can, not fixed, but right, so you can operate in the world. Like somehow it's
mm,
a worldly, it's a program to
yeah.
make you functional in the world. Whereas
Yes.
Buddhism keeps you from flipping out all the time.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
the combination is pretty complete. It takes care of both aspects.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Okay,
Absolutely. And
great.
that's right. The recovery is more behaviorally oriented, and we
Mm-hmm.
have to straighten out our behavior before, first. Um, it's just like, you have to, you know, right, right action leads to right thinking, sort of.
Right.
Um,
Right. It's the opposite
yeah,
of what we always thought, which is
right.
it's quitting smoking is that, oh, well, now I want to quit smoking. So
Yeah.
you'll never quit smoking. So you just quit smoking and say, I really wanted to do that. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. I'll solve my drinking. I've got
right,
it now.
self knowledge. Remember about self
Yes,
knowledge. Yeah.
that too. And
Anyways,
and yet,
thank you.
right,
Thank you.
right, and the Dharma takes us then, yeah, into another aspect of the process. But interestingly, I mean, the actual traditional Buddhism starts with behavioral stuff too, with
Hmm.
the sila, the precepts and everything. It's just
Hmm.
Americans don't pay attention to that part of Buddhism because it's whatever.
Is that the no the Eight Noble Truths?
Well, no, the five precepts, not to kill, not to
Oh
steal,
yes,
not
yes, 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 yes.
not to use intoxicants. That's the one they don't like. It's very unpopular, that precept.
Popular
Okay.
with us. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Enjoy your trip
Yeah. Thanks,
and
Mickey.
travel safely.
Thanks. Um, Deborah. Hi.
Hi, good morning, good evening.
Yep.
I'm just
Good.
curious, did you ship your clubs to Ireland?
I did not. I put them right on the airplane.
Because
I didn't carry them into the cabin,
yeah, that would have eliminated
uh,
a little bit of stress.
I would have had to get an extra seat, to put my
No,
club.
but you could have shipped them from the Bay Area.
Yeah, there's a shipping company and they charge you so much that I was like, no, I'm not paying
Okay,
$250.
you'd rather pay emotionally.
I found it was quite easy.
Okay, it's okay.
I just the air you get into the terminal, you go right to the baggage and they take them, and then at the end they come out and then I walk out and the taxi picks me up. Yeah, the world is actually designed to make things easier for golfers and everyone, sort of. Unless you're poor, then forget it. Sorry. It's harsh. Mary Helen, hello.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you. What I particularly appreciated this morning was your talk about turning toward the difficult things. And the difficult thing I've been dealing with is the death of my brother from
Oh,
Parkinson's disease on
oh,
Saturday. And I've been having a hard time just being with it. And I found your the image of just not fighting that, just
yeah.
being with it, just just turning toward it was comforting. So I really I appreciated that, and I just somehow needed to share that as I've found I've needed to do in a number of settings. So
Yeah.
that's it. Thank
Well,
you.
I appreciate you sharing it, Mary Helen. And I'm sorry to hear that. It's, I have all of my brothers are still alive, shockingly. And, it's something that I know is very likely to happen since I'm the youngest, uh,
Mm,
to lose one of them. And yeah, it's painful. And certainly grief, fighting that is not, or trying to, or feeling bad about having it, whatever. I don't know. No,
yeah.
there's just no, it's, remember when my father died, actually I was a year sober and I had gotten to see him, and kind of make amends, tried to make amends. But I felt a distinct difference between that emotion and the depression that I often would sink into. That grief felt like connected to life,
Mm,
and that it's very human and healthy, really. Like you're supposed to feel grief
yeah.
when your parent dies or when your sibling dies. It's not like, oh, what's wrong with me that I'm having this feeling, right? That we can have, but it's like, oh, this is, and there's a sweetness about it, right? Because it's an expression of love. It's saying, oh, I care about you and I loved you and I miss you. And so, yeah, I think it's really important to just allow ourselves to have that, especially with grief. The suttas, people go crazy. There's a couple suttas where people go crazy with grief over losing their children or something, and the Buddha's always like, wow, what did you think was going to happen? I mean, he says that about himself when he's dying, and people are like sobbing, and he's like, what? Haven't I told you everything is impermanent? Why are you crying? What do you? And there's a difference between that kind of, oh no, they're dying, and oh, the natural grief is that when people are confused, like, wow, they died, I'm shocked. Like, what? You're shocked? Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah. So, lovely. Oh, I see Sarah H has her hand up.
Hi.
Hi.
Your talk about traveling really resonated with me. I just got back from 4 weeks in London and
Oh,
Ireland with my husband, and he has
ooh,
dementia. And it
oh,
was a bucket list trip. This is probably
mm,
our last international trip together ever. But your vignettes totally resonated with me, just in terms of your encounters and escapades with things that are totally out of your control.
yeah.
And you just have to accept it. I mean, I have so much anxiety about traveling myself, and he always calls the airplane a coffin in the sky. So I had to spend much of my time kind
Oh
of
God.
reassuring him and keeping track of his passport and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
finally, so much of what Buddhism teaches us, everything you referenced in your Dharma talk really is about the second arrow. It's like
Yeah.
the thing happens, and then you have the
What it is.
pause, and then you
Yeah.
have the response. And that totally relates to recovery too, because normally my response to my travel anxiety was to go hit the bar before we get on the plane
Yeah.
and drink vodka, right? And here I am traveling with my husband with dementia, and I'm freaking out, but I'm trying to seem calm. And it's like, okay, they could cancel the flight, and oh my God, there's going to be turbulence and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, everything
Yeah.
you said really resonated, and I appreciate your teachings. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. That's beautiful and other. Yeah. I, you know, I have for a long time taken taking off and landing as an opportunity to reflect on death and to just go, oh, okay, I might die right now. Like, that's okay. You know what? Like, I mean, particularly once you get to be an elder, you're like, well, I've had a lot good life. I mean, it's not like somebody would say, well, that's so sad he died young, like, and but also really just to recognize like, oh, here's a moment that it's very stands out. I mean, obviously we could die at any moment, so it's good to be ready. Um, but but to kind of just go, oh, well, this is a moment, like, okay, uh, and just to not be like shocked again, like shocked, like, oh, what's going on? It's like, oh, okay. I mean, not that I wouldn't be disturbed, but um, yeah, yeah, it's very interesting, right? And they always tell you, well, it's more dangerous driving to the airport than it is getting on the plane. But who believes that? It doesn't feel that way. It's that lack of control. When you're driving the car, you feel like, okay, nothing can happen. But when you're just in this thing, and of course, it doesn't make any sense. And I think that our bodies somehow sense that. Like, I don't think we're supposed to be doing this. I don't think we're supposed to be going 500 miles an hour in that 30,000 feet. That's not, I wasn't designed for this. What are you doing? So, but yeah, somehow it kind of works out. All right. Well, next Tuesday, I'm meant to be in another location, Gory, and staying in a private home. So hopefully I assume they will have the internet there. And I look forward to seeing you all then. In the meantime, stay present,
Kevin,
stay safe. Steve, thank you.
enjoy your days.
I will end. Thank you. Ending the meeting.